Hello, on Forest Focus. It's been an incredible season for Nottingham Forest, of course, with the form of goalkeeper Matz Sels one of many factors in a dramatic upturn in results as the Reds chase Champions League football or maybe even the title. So what's changed for Sels to make him an elite Premier League goalkeeper? Help me to look at that and some of the big saves made by the Belgian goalkeeper, as well as one potential weakness is Harrogate Town goalkeeper and friend of the show, James Belshaw. Good to have you back with us, mate. How are you doing?
Cheers, yeah, good. Appreciate it. I was just watching that intro video, wondering if I'm going to get a clip on the intro video at some point soon. But no, good to be back, and yeah, thanks for having me on again.
No, looking forward to it. Thank you in advance. You've done lots of research as ever. You've had a good look at a few Matz Sels clips, mostly around the Liverpool game, but a couple of others that James identified and two others that I wanted him to have a quick look at so we can talk around some of the best areas around Sels' game. Like I say, he's made major progress. And one of the things I wanted to start with just is kind of illustrating the progress that he's made and try and pick a couple of reasons why. Save percentage isn't necessarily the best stat. It's not a solve all, but it is something that we can look at. So I'm going to show Matz Sels' save stats from last season. And by the way, if you're listening to this on iTunes, it's best on YouTube, but we'll do our best to talk you through it. And you can follow along and you can watch clips back on YouTube of all the games if they're not fresh in your memory. So hopefully this works. I think it will. But on screen now is Matz Sels' save percentage for the whole Premier League in his first half season of the club. So joining in January last season until the end of the season. And you can see on the screen, Andre Onana was top with 74.9%. And you have to go all the way down to 25th place. I think there was 28 goalkeepers who played last season. And Sels is on 57.4%. Matt Turner is on there at 67.5%. Odysseus Vakonos is actually below Sels, which probably says something. But yeah, there you go. Matz Sels, 57.4%. Flip that to this season. And he is second in the Premier League, 77.1%, in behind Robert Sanchez, with David Raya in third and Kepa in fourth. I'm going to bring up some other stats shortly, but can you have any loose theories, James, around what's changed? People are going to say he's got a better back four in front of him, and there's other factors as well. But any kind of general theories of how a keeper can change by 20 percentage points, which is pretty huge.
I mean, yeah, like you said, first of all, it's a massive increase in save percentage, and it says a lot about the way Matz Sels has been playing this year. I'm always not skeptical, but sort of conscious when you're analysing stats, because you can sort of manipulate them to fit a narrative in whatever way you kind of want, really, if you've got an agenda. But I think the numbers in this instance, you look at this, 77.1% save percentage. That's a really, really high percentage. Like if you're anywhere upwards of the sort of 65, 70%, you really are performing well. And I think one of the main factors for Matt is probably his confidence. I think he sort of back end of last season started to show improvements, and then this season he'll just be oozing confidence the way he's been playing. He's making big saves, which at times he wasn't making last season. And that's, yeah, I'm going to be in the goalkeepers union here and give him most of the credit for that, because look, he's got to put himself in a position to make those saves regardless of the quality of the shot. He's playing in the best league of the world against some of the best players, and that save percentage is excellent. I think you can't ignore the fact that Forest have been extremely solid defensively, and more so than they were last season. I think Sels is leading the clean sheet charts this season with 9, and having that settled back four in front of him with Aina, Murillo, Milenkovic and Williams has been really sort of solid in front of him. And I think they've limited the amount of shots, and a lot of sort of highlights you look through, there's blocks going in, there's sort of old school throwing bodies on the line. But yeah, I think it's a sort of byproduct of everything that's happening at the football club. There seems to be a really good vibe around the place. The manager's obviously backing Matz Sels, and you take confidence in that when he's being praised in the media for performances. And like, let's not forget, he's an international goalkeeper. He's got pedigree, so it's not like he was some nobody last season. So he's always obviously had the ability. It's just this season it's clicking. And as a goalkeeper, you have those purple patches, you have those seasons where things are, everything seems to be coming off, and there's times when confidence is low. If you've conceded a few goals, you sort of might be second guessing decisions to come and spread, to come and affect the play. You might be second guessing positional sort of play. Whereas when you're winning and playing well, those things happen naturally. So he's in probably the form of his life, really, and just running on instinct and gut, and that's probably the best sort of advice I can give to a goalkeeper, is when you're in that vein of form and you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're not conscious of the little things, you're just doing them because you're going on that feeling and that instinct, and yeah, he's performing really well, and like I said, the numbers are showing there.
One of the things we were talking about on Monday's podcast was about Aaron Ramsdale, and I think one of the guys said, "Oh, I'm glad we didn't get Ramsdale. We dodged a bullet there." This is a wider keeping question. If you put Ramsdale behind our back four, would he have made like the error he made on Sunday, where he sort of threw it in his own net from the header and got away with it? I don't know if you saw that one. It was
I saw that, and I mean that's an uncharacteristic error. Those are the error, like those handling errors, those like freak kind of moments. They happen. Like, I wouldn't sort of delve too much into that, but with Ramsdale, like if you'd have said to Forest fans at the start of the summer, you could have Aaron Ramsdale as your number one, I think most of them would have swapped Sels for Ramsdale. But it kind of goes back to what I've just said there. Ramsdale's playing in a side that's getting beat every week. The style of play under Russell Martin wasn't really conducive to him, and as a byproduct, he's getting exposed. He's facing more shots, and as a result, his confidence drops. So every game is going back, and he's conceded 3, conceded 4, conceded 5, and that takes its toll on you, and the losing and the kind of feel around the club. Whereas you put, again, I'm not taking away from Sels, but you put Ramsdale in that team, and a team that's confident flying. You look at Ramsdale when he sort of first went into Arsenal, when he replaced Bernd Leno as number one, he was exceptional. And many people, I mean, myself for one, thought that it was harsh when Arteta went for Raya and sort of bombed out Ramsdale. But I mean, Raya's been excellent, one of the best keepers in the Premier League, so he's obviously proved us right there. But I think Ramsdale's an excellent keeper, but it is confidence. At the minute, his confidence is really shot playing in that Southampton side that, let's be honest, is going to go down. Whereas you swap them round, and I think, yeah, you would see improved performances from Ramsdale. You'd see, and I think you'd see a regressive performances from Sels if you put him in a Southampton side. And like I said, I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but the structure of Forest with a back four, and then in games he obviously brings Morata on or someone, and he switches to a 3, so he can change it up and go a little bit more solid if he needs to. But look, whatever formula Nuno's got at the training ground, or whatever he's instilling in that back four and goalkeeper, then yeah, long may it continue.
Just a couple of other points before we get on some of the saves that Sels made, just around the defence this season versus defence last season, and the kind of shots that he's facing. This is last season's defence. This is taken from FPL Black Box, so give them a look if you wouldn't mind, because I've just nicked this from them. Hopefully they don't mind. I'm sure they won't. Last season, Forest defence, this was after 37 games. I haven't got 38. They were 6th in the Premier League. They were ranked. Non-penalty expected goals per match was 1.34. Big chances conceded was 1.97. So those are good figures relative to the Premier League. If you look this season, they're 3rd over the course of the season. This is missing the last game, but I don't think it will change too much. Expected goals are down to 1.05, and big chances conceded is down to 1.38. So that's quite important. And I'm just going to play this clip quickly. This is from talking with Josh Williams, head of the Liverpool game, who makes his living from kind of data analysis and stuff like that. And I appreciate this is data heavy, and we will get into all eye test stuff. But I just wanted to play this to James around the quality of chances that Forest are facing, and ask him about one thing in particular about the Forest setup. So this is 50 seconds long.
Every single week, you take 5 shots, you take 6 shots or whatever, and we'll take 15. That's how Liverpool, that's how Arsenal, Manchester City go on these winning runs. I think Forest, on the defensive end, they face generally poor quality shots, manipulating the opposition to shoot in situations where they're probably not going to score. Probably the biggest strength. If we're getting really technical about it, it's expected goal per shot is the metric. Obviously faced. The worst in the league for that is Manchester City. The average shot that City face has about a 14% chance of being scored. Forest, by contrast, are the best in the league. So an 8% chance. That's how I see Forest a little bit, as that Atletico Madrid in the Premier League a little bit.
Does that tally roughly with what you've seen from Forest? That setup, we play very narrow, we block up midfield, we encourage players to shoot from wide and deep, which relates to one of the saves I'm going to ask you about. But would that benefit Sels, do you think, in terms of challenging players to take on more difficult shots than we've seen the previous 2 years with Forest in the Premier League?
Yeah, I think it would, but at the same time, like some of the saves we're going to talk about in the Liverpool game are big chances that Sels is the striker's obviously favourite to score. So Sels is performing and coming up big in those situations. But what the guys just said in there, when we're talking about Man City, you're talking about Liverpool and Arsenal, like those are teams that fans expect them to go on the front foot every game, take the game to the opposition and win games of football. So Liverpool fans aren't going to be happy sitting to counter or, like you said, locking up the midfield, narrowing up around the edge of the box, so you're forcing chances wide. Like Liverpool fans want front foot football, so they could leave themselves a little bit more exposed. Whereas what Forest are massively overperforming for the squad that they've got on paper, but what they're doing really well is sitting in defensively, happy to let the other team have the ball, and then countering with that front four that looks so effective. Gibbs White, Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood, and that's a way of playing that's really suiting Forest, and hence why they are where they are in the league. But bringing it back to the defensive point, yeah, if you're a Forest side that's happy to, like I said, sit in, force the play wide, again, restrict the opposition to entries into the box and defend the box really, really well, and then as soon as that ball gets turned over, within 2-3 passes, all of a sudden you see Hudson-Odoi running at defenders, you see Gibbs White running with the ball, Elanga running with the ball. So that transition has been a massive, massive part of Forest's success this season. So yeah, that's been, again, the defensive side of things has contributed to the attacking side of things because it's allowed them to play in this way.
Excellent. That was just laying the groundwork, a bit of context around it all. We'll get into some specifics of what Sels has done so well around the Liverpool game. We'll start with the corner that we conceded because that's been looked at so much, and it exposes a sort of potential weakness or something Forest might well be looking at around how they set up for corners. Just before we do that, a good time to take a word for the Trent Navigation. A reminder, you can get double stamps on your loyalty cards, throughout January. Just ask at the bar for that. There's still 8 days left of the month, and you can order pizzas via Uber Eats now from the kitchen. So do check that out. Have you been on before when I've asked you about pizzas or not?
I have, yeah. A few of my mates listened to it when I said I was going on. They're like, "Oh, make sure you ask what you figure out what your favourite pizza is." So yeah, we did do that one, yeah.
That's all right. It's come back into 4 now. We've started advertising those pizzas again. Right,
Yeah.
Let's get into the Liverpool game. We'll do it chronologically because they didn't really have a shot on target, literally until the goal. So we'll start with the goal, which is the negative, obviously, and then we'll get into some real positives from that match. Obviously, everyone knows the goal. Tsimikas crosses it, Jota heads it in. So we're going to look at the setup, and James is going to talk us through what went wrong, what Sels could do better, or how he could be helped particularly. So this is the setup. This is how Forest are lined up. Tsimikas is about to strike the ball. I think it's a pretty standard setup. We've seen a lot for Forest. Nico Williams in that important spot on the corner of the 6-yard box. Yates on the post. Then Milenkovic in one major heading position with Murillo in behind, and then Chris Wood in behind them. So your 3 best headers effectively. Do you like that setup, James? You want to talk about Cody Gakpo, I assume, but what do you make of that whole setup?
Yeah, I think from obviously being asked to do this, I took a look back through the last sort of 5-6 games Forest corners against, and he does seem to favour this setup. So what he's trying to do is put his best headers of the ball in the most dangerous areas. So, like I said, Milenkovic, Murillo and Wood, they aren't tasked with marking men. They're tasked with, if that ball's in that zone, they've got to go put their head on it. Like, same with Williams in the front zone, same with Yates on the post. Pretty much the same with Aina I think it's Aina at the back stick. And then the 3 in there, so like your Andersons, Gibbs White, those kind of players, they'll be blockers. So whether they have specific men, I think in this case, I think one of them was tasked to Van Dijk, but obviously, if you've got 5 or 6 players, Liverpool players running and attacking the box, if you want that zone with those players free, you have to give up and allow players to have a free run at goal. Now, for me, again, I prefer sort of a part zone or part man marking, where I like having the guy in sort of Nico Williams' position, probably dropped a little bit deeper, protecting that near zone, and I like one free header on the 6-yard box and then everyone else marking. Because I think with man marking, there's accountability. There's clear accountability for it goes up on the board before the game. This is your man. He does not score. So there can be grey areas with this sort of zonal heavy setup. Now, as we look at obviously we're kind of focusing on Sels in terms of this goal. So you've got Gakpo, who's on Sels, but at the minute he's not getting involved. So there's 2 types of kind of player as a goalkeeper, what kind of I've experienced over the years. When there's a person standing on you, you have players who are really into it, who will come in straight away, they'll grab, they'll try and undo your glove straps, they'll stand on your toes. There's all these little things, so they're kind of getting into your head, and they'll stand in that position so you can't, but you basically to stop you getting into the position you want to be. So it's a bit of cat and mouse, you're kind of moving around the goal, trying not to get into it too much, because obviously you're focusing on the ball. Now, Gakpo's just out of eye shot here for Matz Sels, so he's aware of him, but at the minute he's not really affecting him. Now, as the corners take him, Gakpo then starts to make his move towards Matz Sels, and this is where I think he causes Matz Sels a big problem, because he's coming from his blind side. You see there now, Sels can't see where Gakpo is. It's the same with these Arsenal set pieces that are so effective. You have 5, 6 players running from the backside. As a goalkeeper, you can't really be glancing at what's happening behind you because you're so focused on where the ball's going. So Gakpo enters into Matz Sels' space, and then as he forward it along, he gets sort of onto Matz Sels here, and this is the big one here. So now Sels is in a bit of a struggle here, because Gakpo's got his body in front of him, and it's not foul, because you could half say, oh, he's grabbing him there, but he's got his arm around him, he's being strong, so there's no foul in there. And I am of the opinion that goalkeepers do get too much protection from corners before anyone starts saying stuff like that. Goalkeepers do definitely get, from referees, they get too much protection. I do agree with that. But Gakpo there, it then becomes very difficult for Matz Sels to affect the ball, because regardless of whether it being 3 yards out or 6 yards out or 8 yards out, if there's a bloke stood in front of you, you can't affect the ball. You can't get there. So Sels has to find a way of getting around Gakpo earlier. But where Gakpo does really well is because he doesn't actually get onto Sels until sort of the moment when Sels is thinking about making a movement towards the ball. So he does do really well, Gakpo. But it kind of, obviously where it goes in, it's 3 yards out. And for me, I mean, you look at that still there and it looks like it's very close to his glove, but I think the angle of it does just go over Murillo's head. Look, this is another thing with the zonal marking with Murillo and Wood. Jota's obviously not been assigned to either of them. So is that Murillo's ball? Is that Wood's ball? Is that Matz Sels' ball? It's a very sort of grey area, which is why the zonal sort of system can come under fire. But look, Jota heads the ball 3 yards out around 2 6 foot plus defenders and a 6 foot plus goalkeeper. So for me, it's one that he'll be disappointed with. But I don't think this comes as a surprise, because I went back through Forest defensive corners over the last sort of 4 or 5 games, and it's a very common theme, because for me, there's a way that can be prevented with this. You've got, like we said, you had Yates, you had Williams, then you've got the 3 big lads, and then you've got Aina. You've got 6 players there. You can bring one of those in and stand in with Gakpo, because if you've now got a man between you, it's goalkeepers would, I'd say if you speak to more goalkeepers would say they'd rather have a defender in there with them. Now, the defender can play it 2 ways. The defender will mark Gakpo, but still go and win the ball. So basically you'd have Sels, then you'd have Gakpo on him, and then you'd have the defender. So the defender is still in there to go and win the ball. Now, what I prefer, and I think a majority of goalkeepers prefer, is to have that defender in between Matz Sels and Gakpo. Because if you get say you lose Ryan Yates from that near post zone, Williams can cover that near post zone for me if he just drops himself a little bit deeper. And then if it goes over his head, you've got Milenkovic to attack that near post zone. So I think Forest can cover that. Now, you bring Yates in between Gakpo and Sels. Yates' sole responsibility is to keep Cody Gakpo off Matz Sels. So if that ball lands 3 yards out like it does, Matz Sels has a clear attack of that ball, it becomes a very easy punch or a simple catch. Now, this is something for whatever reason, whether it's Sels, whether it's Nuno, whether it's any form of analysis that is being carried out at Forest. For some reason, they choose not to have that player that's in there marking the man on the keeper. So you look at instances. I flicked back through. There was one for against Newcastle. This one here. Now, I said to you, we could argue that it's a foul from Guimaraes because he does push Matz Sels. But again, Sels is in there on his own with a player. So whether Guimaraes starts on him, whether he starts just off him and then bumps him or gives him a little nudge, it throws him off. And then you can see there it leaves Isak to knock the ball in from 4 or 5 yards out. Again, we go back to the Ipswich game. There's Connor Chaplin here I've played against Connor Chaplin. He's barely sort of 5'10", 5'11". Again, Chaplin's in here on Sels, and you look at Sels' position here. He's obviously crouched down. He's dealing with Chaplin. Look how close he is to his line. Sels is on his goal line here. He can't affect anything unless it's put right on top of him. And in this instance, the Ipswich lad heads it, and Aina gets back and makes a clearance off the back post, like he's done, like you said, 3 in a week. So this, for me, if I'm looking at this, if I'm Forest next opponent and I'm looking at, is it Bournemouth next game? If I'm Bournemouth, I'm looking at this and going, for some reason Forest don't like to have that man shielding Matz Sels, so stick 2 men on him. Go and put 2 players in there, because Forest will have this zone, and unless they want to change it up because of the goals against Southampton, Onuachu's goal obviously at the near post, and then the Aina clearance again. In those instances, there's players on Matz Sels again. So as the headers won at the near post, I think it was Bednarek that had the one that was cleared off the line. As that headers won, Sels can't be in the position that he's in because he's fighting with a striker. He can't get to where he wants to be. He can't affect the ball. He can't affect the cross. And then the ones that he does come in effect with bodies around him, there was a few in the Wolves game, there's a few in the Brentford game where he's come in, and there was one in the Liverpool game before I think it was before one of the chances that we were talking about. He comes, but because there's a body in front of him, he's coming with like a 2-handed like box, and he's trying to punch and affect the ball away. Whereas ideally, if you're getting 2 hands to box the ball, you want to be catching it, or at least attempting to catch it. A punch is kind of an extended reach where you're trying to make that extra distance if you're at full stretch to shift the ball away from danger. But because he's getting boxed in, because he has players on him, because he can't get to where he wants to be, these punches are falling in and around sort of 10 to 18 yards out. And I don't really think Forest have been punished from any of the actual punches, but it's only really a matter of time, because from that second phase of the corner, because Forest have got 6 zonal men, you've not got players marked. So you're going to have 3 players in and around the 6-yard box, in and around the penalty box, because the Forest defenders don't have a man to pick up. Wood's not been assigned a man, so he's going to go and lock onto him. He's in his zone. So I just think it's something that could be addressed, and I think it could benefit Forest. Like, look, again, defensively they have been so sound, but if I was looking at one area where I think there could be a bit of improvement, and all it would take would be losing one of those men out the zone. I said Yates in the example, but if he wants to send one of the big marks, whether he wants Chris Wood to mark their biggest threat or and bring someone else into that zone, but it means that someone can then go on to Sels and protect him and just give him a bit of space and a bit of time, because the defender then, if it is Yates that comes in for argument's sake in the Gakpo situation, Yates is all he's bothered about is keeping Gakpo off Sels. So Yates hasn't got any sort of instruction to go and win the ball. So Sels hasn't got to fight with him because Yates is doing that. And Sels can then work his feet and use his reach and his height to come and affect the crosses. I just think for me, it's something that if Forest are to go on, and again, it feels silly talking about Forest improving on what they're doing now, but it's just one area where I think they look a bit vulnerable. And again, had Aina not cleared that one off the line in the last minute, it's 3-3 against Southampton, and all of a sudden it's a game that Forest should be winning. But look, it's a small thing, but something that I think I think could be looked at and could be addressed in order to make Forest that little bit more solid.
Yeah, I think teams have picked up on it already. The last few games we haven't looked to secure from set pieces. Liverpool, a lot of Liverpool corners are Trent Alexander-Arnold pinging it onto the near post, and Liverpool did it differently. So I think it's something that teams have obviously identified
and again,
already.
With players there like Trent, one of the best ball strikers in the world. Like these boys can put the ball wherever they want to. So even the Southampton corners attacking the near post, Forest look vulnerable in those areas because, again, I'm kind of digressing from the goalkeeping situation, but if you look at, I think there was one of the Southampton players was tasked with blocking Milenkovic. So I think it was Milenkovic in that near zone. He steps across him and blocks him again. Because he's not being marked, he can go and do that. So then one of Southampton's big attacking aerial threats, who's got a free run on those blockers, those midfield players that are blocking, can then go and attack the ball. And like you said, they score the header and again probably should have scored. So yeah, it's just an area that I think could be improved.
Yeah, it was Will Smallbone he blocks Milenkovic. He's not the biggest player, but if you take Milenkovic out and you free up the bigger player, then it can lead to
exactly. Yeah. So Smallbone sacrificing himself because again he's not going to win that header. But regardless of whether you're 6'4" or 5'10", if you go stand in front of Milenkovic, you can't get to where he wants to be to win that header. So he can't affect the ball in the way that he wants to.
Let's focus on the series of really good saves then that Sels made, and this was his peak performance for the whole season. So I think it merits some further analysis and praise of just how good it was. Obviously, he made 2 really good blocks from Diogo Jota. It's symptomatic of stuff he's done this season. He rushes off his line so quickly, and these were really good examples. I've picked one of them out, or James has picked one out. We've got some stills. So I think this is the second one, which is arguably the better one. This is the starting position. So you can just see Sels tucks in behind Murillo there. The ball's just been blocks clear, I think. So that's where Sels starts.
Yeah, it comes from Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think he sort of loops the ball back into that sort of dangerous area between goalkeeper and back four. And then at this point here, what these pictures don't show is the reaction time that Matz Sels has, because he has a split second to make one of two decisions, really. He either stays, gets set, and backs himself to make the save. Now, Jota's 7 yards out running onto a bouncing ball that he's just going to put his foot through. So in terms of reaction time, you probably haven't got that much time to be able to react to it. There's no bodies in front of him, which is the key difference here to some of the other instances where he can stay because there's bodies in front that can block the ball. Now here, obviously, he sees Murillo there. There's a clear line of sight that Jota's got to the goal, so he makes an unbelievable decision to come and close that down. And again, these stills don't do it justice because it happens. Happens so fast. And at this point now, he's 2 yards away from Jota. He's just got to spread himself and make himself as big as possible. And you look there, his arms are outstretched, his legs are outstretched, throwing himself at the ball. And to me, it's an incredible save. Like the actual action of making the save, the ball hits his knee and goes wide. He's not moved his knee towards the ball, but the decision to go and close the space down because there's no defenders in front of him, not allowing Jota a free shot at goal. Because let's be honest, the pace that Jota's going to hit that from, even if Sels is 6 yards away, he's still not going to have the time to react to it. So he's not going to be able to stay and react and get his hands up to make a save. So the decision to go, the way he spreads, and look, it could so easily have gone past him, but he doesn't know much about the save. But to get himself in that position to make that save, look where he ends up. He ends up 6 yards out. So he's covered pretty much, I'd say, 5 yards in the time that Jota's covered sort of 4 yards to get onto the ball. So again, the pace he comes out at and fair play. And to be fair, you look at what Forest tried to do there, and whether this is kind of something that's been taught defensively, Aina's dropping back onto the line, Murillo's dropping back onto the line, whether that's something that they work on in training, any shots in and around the box, get back onto the line, like Aina's obviously made all these goal line clearances, whether that's something they pick up on, I don't know. But for me, it's an unbelievable save at a big time in the game. Liverpool are on the ascendancy, they've not long scored, so yeah, really, really important save that.
How much are you working on stuff like that in training? Is a lot of it's reaction times, but like you say, a lot of it must be decision making. So how much can you practice stuff like that?
Yeah, we will do a wide variety of sessions around this sort of topic. Like, obviously, it's impossible to recreate every scenario, but there'll be sessions where you've got limited time to see the ball. you've got to, again, like you said, the big thing here is the decision making. You've got to decide whether you go or whether you retreat to your line to give yourself as much reaction time as possible to make the save. So yeah, these are things that they'll work on. I think, again, without digressing too much, goalkeeper training is pretty much associated around kind of looking at what went on last weekend at the game. Was there anything that we didn't do so well, could have done better, did well? Let's look at all of that. Can we build those, incorporate them into the session? Is it a recurring theme? Is it something that's been happening over the last 3 or 4 weeks? If not, do we just ignore it? But then the main sessions leading up to the weekend or leading up to this game will be focused around probably Mo Salah mainly, but Liverpool's attacking threats. What do they like to do? Do they like to cut inside? What does Jota do when he gets the ball in this area? Does he take 2 or 3 touches before he strikes, or is he going to strike it first time? So they'll recreate possible scenarios, but that's just experience and an unbelievable bit of goalkeeping.
Let's move on to a second save that you really want to talk about. And you want to talk about it because if people recall previously, we did one of these with Sels and Carlos McGallis, but we focused on the Everton game last season where we lost 2-0. Both goals were scored from distance in quite similar circumstances with sort of bodies in the way. And you were talking about Sels' positioning and footwork and stuff like that. So this is a really good example from Dominic Szoboszlai of, I think what you say is a really top save. So this is the shot, the starting position again. Szoboszlai is about to shoot from 22, 23 yards there. To take it from there around positioning and footwork and everything you like about this.
Yeah, so as I was watching, prepping for this game, I saw this shot and immediately thought about the Dwight McNeil goal at Goodison last year, where Forest, like you said, lost 2-0, and it was pretty much a carbon copy of this strike in the sense that there's a defender in front of him, so it's blocking his line of sight to the ball. Is it Yates or is it? No, it's Elliot.
Elliot Anderson.
So Elliot's getting out to him. So here he can't see the ball, but his positioning is good. His weight's forward. It's not on his heels. He's ready to spring. His hands are in a comfortable set position, but this ball's sneaking in pretty much just off the post, similar to what McNeil's did. But the difference with this one and the McNeil one from last season is he gets a good step in. And what I mean by that is Sels' position is set forward. In terms of the best sort of practice for goalkeeping is to get a little step in before the dive, if possible. Because if you can get a little step to your left and then push off your left foot, say you get half a yard step, it gives you that extra half a yard of reach. Whereas if from a sort of a standing base, if you just plant your left foot and try and push off, you're not going to get that extra distance. So it shows that it's something that he's worked on, because the ball, again, I can't comment on the exact pace and the exact stuff, but from a relatively similar scenario, that went in last year, and that's not going in anymore because it's something that he's possibly worked on, because there was 2 goals in that Everton game where he got beat from distance in the bottom corner. So it's something they might have looked at, something that they've worked on, where he's making saves through bodies from the edge of the box. But I noticed that he's got that little quick step in, and then he's pushed, powered through, gets a strong left hand to tip it around the post. And yeah, for me, if I was Matz Sels' coach, I'd be really pleased with that save, just because of the scenarios that he was put in last season where he was getting beat from this sort of range. Whereas now he's not, and at 31, 32 years old, we're nearly 33, I think Sels is, you can still learn, you can still improve, you can still make changes to your technique. So yeah, I'm sure he'll be very happy with this one as well.
We've got another one from Gakpo that's very similar that we will come to in a second in terms of distance. But I just wanted to ask about this one from Salah, which is pretty, in terms of this game, it's pretty regulation. But I wanted to ask about dealing with the star players for each team, particularly Salah. 9 times out of 10, he takes that shot on where he aims for the far corner. Is that subconsciously in your mind as a keeper that you're going to get set in that position? You think he's going to do that? Just talk us through this save, if you would.
Yeah, so with this one, with Salah and leading up to this game, a lot of the analysis would have been on Mo Salah, as is rightly so. He's going to be the best player in the Premier League at the minute. So they'll look at Salah. He'll look at Salah in these types of scenarios. What does he like to do? Mo Salah likes to cut inside, get the ball in his left foot, open up that far side of the goal and bend the ball in. And he's got the quality to be able to do that from 12 yards out there, 18 yards out, 24 yards out. So where we're looking at here, I think it's Williams in front of him trying to make the block. Williams is pretty much covering that near post zone. it'd be very hard for Salah to reverse the ball. Now, the problem you have with inverted wingers, and for those who might not know, a left footer playing on the right or a right footer playing on the left, if you allow them to cut inside, so if you allow Mo Salah to cut inside onto his left foot, it opens the goal. And what I mean by that is he can either bend it round Sels to his right, or he can reverse it to the near post. And Sels can kind of not really cover either because of the distance it is and because the goal's so big. It's opened up. Now, what Williams does really well here is he blocks that near zone, the near post zone. So it's very hard for Salah to reverse that ball into the near post. So Sels can probably start to gamble and sort of lean. I mean, you can't really see here, but I guess if there was a frame on, his body weight's leaning slowly towards the right. I think what helps him is that it's high and it's more central than Salah would want. If Salah starts that a yard outside the post, Matz Sels isn't getting anywhere near it, because it's just going to curl in and it's just going to kiss off the inside of the post into the side netting. And again, we're talking about a very different game, but it's not the best of efforts from Salah for a player of his quality. But again, Sels has to get across. I think he saves this one with his top hand. So when you dive into, well, in this case, he's diving to his right hand will get out further, but his left hand as he comes across will get higher. So anything that's high and across there, he has a better chance of bringing his top hand across to tip the ball over the bar. Whereas anything that's started out near the sort of from the outside of the post, he's going to get across and reach with his right hand. So because it's central, because it's high, you can get a strong left hand on it. And again, like I said, it's another great save, but it is a more comfortable save than the others. But I think we're getting on for sort of 75, 80 minutes, 85 minutes into a game that is 1-1 that, let's be honest, it is a big game between, I think they were first and second at the time. So it's another really important save. And what makes it a little bit better is his vision there. Williams, although he's doing a great job cutting off that near post zone, he is in Matz Sels' eye line. So he sees it a little bit later, but because of the pace, because of the location in the goal, because he can get that top hand across and get the spring off his right foot, yeah, it's a more comfortable save, but an important save nonetheless.
Do you think he's in a bit of a mental zone at this point? You might have been there yourself, where you're under the cosh in a game, and it's totally different to, you were saying before we started recording last night, a game that was an awful 0-0 where you face one shot on target. In a game like this with so much on it and so much being thrown at him, do you get into kind of a mental zone, do you think?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I said at the start in terms of confidence, in terms of, you can call it flow if you like. You get into that flow as a goalkeeper where you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're just going off instinct and you're making the right decisions. And I've been in games where you're getting peppered the last sort of 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes of a game, and you make a couple of saves and the confidence starts to build and the adrenaline starts to go and those nerves start coming in because there's a bit of anxiety, like, oh, there's only 5 minutes left, there's only 3 minutes left. What if this happens? But when you're that busy and you're that switched on, because all the action's in and around Forest box, he's constantly focused on positioning his defenders, thinking about what could potentially happen, making sure Salah's marked, making sure Gakpo's marked, making sure Jota's marked, making sure they're getting blocks at the edge of the box, sorting out. So there's so many things going on, constantly shifting his feet, that he hasn't really got time to sort of get into that moment or that place where he's like, what if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? You're in that flow of the game and you're acting on instinct, which he seems to be doing at the minute. And like I said, it's working.
Last save in this match before we move on to a couple of others is the one from Gakpo. This is about 92 minutes in. It's not the greatest still, apologies for that, but you can see Gakpo has just unleashed the shot from about 20 yards and Sels is lined up as so. Talk us through what you like about this one.
So again, from this one, it's just outside the box. It's on an angle. So he's positioned himself a bit closer to the near post to kind of cover all bases. So he can affect the ball if it's reversed to the near post. He can also, like in this case, get across low to his left if he needs to. But you said you didn't notice it, but until later on. But what makes this save an excellent save is, I don't think we've got the frame, but it clips off Dominguez. So that ball's probably going a lot more central to Matz Sels. Dominguez deflects it from probably 10, 12 yards out. Like I discussed on the last one that I did, the shot from 20 yards out then becomes a 12-yard save. So he has to react to the deviation of the ball. He has to, again, keep his weight forward. Thankfully, he's not already gambled and gone for that first save, because as goalkeepers, excuse me, we've all been there where you take off to make a save and then it deflects and it's back the other way and you're a sitting duck. So In this case, he's kept his weight forward, his head's forward, his hands are set, he's on his toes, he's not on the balls with his feet, and then he can react to that and spring across to his left and power through that left leg. And you look at that, it's a fingertip save, it just tips outside of the post, and again, it's another save in what is a match-winning performance. And look, I know we spoke about the goal earlier in the show, but we've just gone through 3 or 4 instances there when Sels has kept his side in the game. So in terms of credit in the bank, in terms of what he's done in this game, the positives far outweigh the potential negatives of the goal conceded.
Yeah, massively. I tried. It was so hard to get a still of the Dominguez one, but it hits his hand, no question of a penalty, and goes down. So I think it's a brilliant save. With that in mind, if I was asking you from a goalkeeper's point of view to rank them or pick out the best save that we've discussed there, which one would you go for?
I think in terms of looking at the save as a whole, I think the Jota one is the best, just because of that bravery, that decision to come and close the space down, to spread himself as big as possible, to the ball's obviously going to get smashed in his face or wherever from 2 yards away. So that quick thinking, that decision for me makes it the best one. In terms of technique, I'd probably say this one, because he's kept himself balanced enough to be able to spring and react to the deflection, but followed closely by the Szoboszlai one, just for the reasons that I've outlined before. It was an area of his game where we sort of highlighted there was a few goals gone in where he might be disappointed with. So to be able to make a save like that, I'd probably put that one on a par.
Excellent. Do you want to get a drink of water, or are you all right?
Yeah, I'll have a little drink of water. Yeah, I'm all good.
Oh, you've got one with you? I thought I was going to send you off to the kitchen or something. Oh, no, that's good.
Come prepared.
Good. You save me having to edit this afterwards. Right. I've got 2 more saves to show James just quickly, and then we move on to one more topic before I let him go. He had a very good game against Wolves, obviously. There was one save in particular I just wanted to really quickly look at. It's the one from Strand Larsen, who had a bit of a stinker on the night, the poor guy. He heads one, really should score. It hits Sels is the phrase I use, but I suppose the question is, does it hit Sels? Is it down to good positioning? Is it down to bad finishing? Just what's your reaction to this one?
So it's similar to the Jota one in the sense that, look, everyone's going to say the striker should score, and like you said, that phrase, it's just hit him. And whilst I can't argue with the physical action of that header, because it's that far away, the same with the Jota one, the ball does hit Matz Sels. But what people don't take into account is the positioning, the experience, the footwork, the everything about what he does in the 2, 3, even half a second before this header. So the ball gets delivered in from deep. He can't come and affect the cross. So he drops deep, but he works his feet across into a central position, because I think I spoke about it on the last one. As that ball gets delivered from sort of a narrow box cross position, like sort of just outside the 18-yard box, you maybe position yourself a little bit closer to the near post because it's narrow, because he could affect that near post. He then works his feet across, gets himself into the optimum position, and there Strand Larsen, he heads it, but Sels puts himself in that position to make the save. So for me, another great save, because again, not focusing on the physical action of the ball hitting the body, it's everything that's done in the seconds leading up to that makes it an important save. And again, point saving save.
Is there a particular cross that is particularly hard to deal with as a keeper? I think that one was bending and it's sort of going towards the far post. There's obviously loads of different kinds of crosses. Are there any that cause you particular problems or not?
There's two that probably stick out. The ones where from, say, the corner of the 18-yard box, when it's an in-swinger, safe from it's out that side, a right footer who's bending it in, and you've got strikers running onto it, and you don't know whether that ball's going to go all the way in because it's probably going to go in at the back post. So do you gamble and dive across to make that save at the back post, but run the risk of 4 or 5 strikers or even defenders getting a nick on it? So we've all seen those goals where someone's cut inside, bent one, like in that Salah position, bent in, gone with the left foot, and it's a cross-come shot that commentators will call it. And it goes in at the back post and the keeper just ends up standing and watching it go in. But it's such a difficult one to deal with because you're waiting, you're expecting contact. I had one against Grimsby. Not that anyone's going to go and look at it, but the guy's cut inside and he's put one with his left foot and it's going in at the back post. But you can't do anything about the initial shot shot, so to speak, because you have to stay in case anyone gets a little touch on it, a little nick on it. As it transpires, no one gets touch on it, and it goes in off the post at the back stick. So I think they're really difficult ones. Probably the most difficult one, and then followed by the ones that get to the byline and then they just whizzed along the 6-yard box, bouncing in. Again, anyone can come and get a touch on it. You can't really come and kind of close the angle down. You've got a decision whether you go and stand level with the post and try and cut it out as a cutback, similar to Nicholas Jackson's header last year when Sels has gone to the near post and gambled and the ball's been stood up. So again, these things all happen very quickly. But for me, those ones that are kind of going in at the back post that you're sort of anticipating a touch, they're the most difficult ones for me, I think, to deal with.
Yeah, we've played for that quite a lot recently. Elliot Anderson gets the byline and pulls it back, and it's a kind of the Man City goal. So that's interesting. One last save to mention quickly. I asked James to look at this one because it's not the save itself. This one, it's I think he's made this save quite a lot in games. Villa springs to mind, Spurs springs to mind, both at home from Brennan Johnson and Matty Cash. Maybe because there are former players, I don't know. So it's one where the shot is coming. It's almost always from the right side, actually, as well. Right side across the keeper towards the near post. And he kind of ends up, this is a bad still. It's hard to find one. This is just a photo. Ends up in that body position where you're trying to push it out, hopefully not into danger. Actually, this one isn't a good example, is it, James? Because he pushes it back out into danger. But just talk us through this save because he's made it quite a lot this season.
But again, you say he's pushed it back into danger. It's a powerful shot. I think it's Hutchinson in this case. So yeah. So instances like this, and you kind of asked me the question, was he seems to be facing a lot of shots from these sort of positions. And I think I said to you straight away, the way Forest are defending, you've got Forest back 4 there within 10, 12 yards of each other. Forest defends so compact and so narrow that they're forcing chances to be taken from outside that. If you imagine you drew a corridor, you drew a line, you extended the 6-yard box all the way to the 18-yard box on both sides. That is the area on the pitch where, it sounds stupid, but most goals are scored. You get outside that area, we spoke about stats earlier, the XG goes down really, really rapidly. So if you can defend those sort of the 3 6-yard boxes, so to speak, if you can defend that central area and force players wide, then it gives you the best chance of either someone getting a block or, in this case, Sels making the save. But I know that I remember seeing the Brennan Johnson one that you spoke about. So what makes these saves so difficult is your footwork is going across from centrally to the near post. You then have to get set, but because you're moving so quickly to get into the optimum set position, his weight is all on his left foot. So what he's got to do in a split second is stop himself, shift his weight back into a neutral position, so then he can go back across himself, or he can make the save at the near post. So I think we spoke about difficult crosses to deal with. For me, the most difficult saves to make are the ones where crosses come in or the angle of the shot shifted and you're working your feet across the goal and you're working it, say, to the left, and that ball's whizzed back across the right. Because as you're running one way, you've got to stop, set, and then cut yourself back and go back on yourself. So in this one, and I think the Brennan Johnson one, he has a bit of time to get set, but he works his feet across. And then it's about getting that strong right hand on the ball because the pace is such that he can't hold it. And what strikers will do well is strikers are taught, hit it back across the goalkeeper, because you risk a deflection or you risk the keeper putting it back into a dangerous area. But for a save like this, he gets down, gets a strong right hand onto it. Yes, it does go back into a dangerous area. Not a lot Matz Sels can do about it. But at that point, you're hoping your defenders bail you out. And what it looks like Forest are doing this season, there's 3 red shirts in front of those 2 Ipswich shirts. So it's more than likely that a Forest player is going to land on that and be able to hook the ball clear. So, yeah, really, really good save. Difficult one. Technically, a very, very good save like you saw in that still. And one he's, like you said, he's made a lot this season.
Good to get your thoughts on that. Like I say, as you say, he's made it a lot, and it's an impressive one, and something that I thought he'd added to his game. Always been forced to add to his game, certainly. One last topic I wanted to ask James about just before that. Thanks very much to Vesta Blinds for their support of this show as ever. If you are looking for bespoke blinds or shutters in your home, then do check out the link in the description, vestablinds.com. Phone numbers on the screen as well, and email. But you can obviously check out the website if you're listening, not watching. So thanks very much to Vesta Blinds for their support. Right, I wanted to ask you about, obviously all our attention is on the Premier League at the moment, But the FA Cup is also on the horizon. We've got the 4th round tie against Exeter. You're well placed to talk about it from sort of the underdog's point of view, because Harrogate went to Elland Road in the 3rd round, played Leeds in front of a big crowd, gave a really good account of themselves. So I want to ask you a little bit about it, just mostly in terms of mindset going into the game and messages from the manager. If you're an Exeter player right now, I think there's a week and a bit to the tie, something like that. How are you feeling about it? Is it a distraction? And also, what is your mindset when you're going into facing a Premier League team or a top Championship team in your case?
So in our cup run, we kind of had it both ways. We beat Wrexham first round. We were the underdogs, and then we had Gainsborough at home, who, again, it's not really Forest Exeter, but I think there's 3 divisions between us and Gainsborough. So again, we're expected to go and win that game. So when you're preparing for a game like that, there's all the cliches, complacency, treat it like a proper game, and it can be difficult to kind of to maintain your standards. So it'd be something that Nuno will be drilling into the Forest players about not underestimating Exeter. And then we went to Elland Road, and from the Exeter players' point of view, as soon as the draw was made for us, and we saw we're away at Elland Road, it's one that everyone focuses on. Now we had I think 8 games between the draw being made and Elland Road, and I think we lost 6, drew 1 and won 1. So we went on a bit of a downturn of form. So whether that was anything to do with it, can't exactly put my finger on it, but it's an occasion that is special, and for us as players to go, as League Two players, to go and test ourselves against the best team in the Championship, who will more than likely be a Premier League club next year. It's good because you get to see how far away from them you are, because as players we want to play as high as we can, and the percentages of players that become professional and make it into the Football League and is so minimal. So for us to be even at a League Two level takes a lot of work, takes a lot of luck, a lot of opportunity, and for these boys to be at the top level, it's just insane how good they are. And going to Elland Road, it was unbelievable atmosphere, full house, and it was for us about giving a good account of ourselves. And we sat in, defended, we conceded a goal in the second half, and we had chances. We put them under pressure towards the end. I was speaking to Carl Darlow, obviously ex-Forest player. I kind of know him a bit from growing up, and was chatting to him after the game, and he was sort of impressed with the way we performed. So I think it's slightly different in the sense that Exeter at home, aren't they?
Yes, that was what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah. So I think it is slightly different. I think if Exeter are coming to the City Ground, I think it's the atmosphere that Forest fans will produce, because Forest tickets are like gold dust, aren't they? I tried to get my hands on a couple of tickets. I know a journalist that was at the game the other week. Tried to get my hands on Liverpool ones. I'm kind of trying to pepper him for the Arsenal game coming up, if he covers that one. But look, Forest, it'll be a sellout. If it was at Forest, there'd be the atmosphere would be great. So it becomes a very different sort of proposition. Whereas going away to Exeter, I've played there a few times myself. It's a very difficult place to go. Look, Forest should win the game. There's no doubt about that. But you would expect Nuno to make a lot of changes. Obviously, he's going to change the goalkeeper, isn't he? He's going to change a lot of those sort of key players. But I think momentum's big in football. So I don't think if I was Nuno or I was a manager, I would want to, we want to focus on getting into Europe. We want to focus on getting in the Champions League. We want to focus on winning the league. Do you know what I mean? Those kind of questions, which for Forest to even be saying is unreal. So I think Forest can still go there, play a strong team and win the tie and compete in the FA Cup. Because, where the Forest more than likely will finish in Europe. But if you go and throw that game, not throw the game obviously in that sense, but like you play a severely weakened side and you get beat, then there's a bit of negativity creeps in. There's a bit of doubt creeps in. Maybe, are we as good as we think we are? And then all of a sudden it feels like a different sort of run into the end of the season. But look, Forest should go there full of confidence and put in a performance to compete in the FA Cup, because Forest got a great chance of winning it. They perform the way they are. They've got a great chance of going and winning the FA Cup and competing in the Premier League. So, look, there's a lot of positivity around the club at the minute. So, for me, it would be go as strong as you can, give those give Chris Wood, give Milenkovic, give Murillo, give your Gibbs White, your key players reduce minutes, and get those players in, like Ward-Prowse, players like that haven't really had a lot of opportunity to impress. A 1 year, get those players in, Jota, Silva, and give them an opportunity, because they're playing with a point to prove. They want to be in this side come the run in. So yeah, it's one that I wouldn't be expecting Forest to take lightly. And for me, if I was a Forest fan, I'd be saying, look, let's go and win the game. Let's go and try and win the FA Cup.
Oh, we can play Mateus Cunha in that one. The reports have been believed.
I saw that, and Whistler as well. There's a few names being branded about. So look, I said it on the last one. Every time I've been on social media stuff, like, it's a great time to be a Forest fan. I am a Notts County fan, so let's hope for a double promotion. Well, Notts promotion and Forest to do something special this year. Be great for the city. Obviously, I live in the city myself. I do coach in the city if anyone's interested. East Midlands Elite Soccer. I have my own goalkeeping school. I've not just put this on for tonight. I have been coaching tonight, so I've not just gone and tried to plug it. But yeah, I do run those sessions every week. So if anyone's interested in getting in touch, you can find us on socials. Hope that was all right. Am I allowed to plug that? Is that all right?
You are. Oh my God, you give me your time. So yeah. No, you can. I want to ask you one last question on the FA Cup tie quickly. Yeah. When that draw's made, you're going to Ellen Road. If that draw had been at, is it Wetherby Road? I can't remember. I think that's the name.
Yeah, Wetherby Road, yeah.
Yeah. So say that tie was at Wetherby Road. Is the mindset, instead of we're at Ellen Road, lovely challenge, we'll give them a good game, see what we can do. If it's at Wetherby Road or at St James's Park in XCS, you think, we've got a chance here. Bring them to our place. Let's have a real go at it.
I think for us against Leeds, I think the so-called PC answer is to say, yeah, we fancy ourselves. Look, it's a monumental ask to beat Leeds United, whether you're at home or whether you're away. Like, Championship teams can't beat them at the minute. So, to be honest, if the tie was at Harrogate, I'd have probably been a bit more gutted. And I think even going to, like, I used to play for Tamworth. I know a lot of Tamworth lads. Like, this, for me, I'd be gutted if that Spurs tie is not at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because it's a once in a lifetime thing. Look, even if we'd have beat Leeds United at Harrogate, we're not going to go win the FA Cup. Like, it just isn't going to happen. So you want those ties to be in the biggest sort of arena that you can. So yeah, I think we'd have probably had a slightly better chance of winning, but I think that was negligible in terms of what we benefit from the experience, and also financially as a club, which is I know is a big thing around replays. Like, Tamworth would have had a replay at Spurs and the money that they would have made. And there's a big sort of say, look, playing at Ellen Road as a club, we made so much more money than we would have, because if people don't know, in the FA Cup, you split the gate receipts, you split all the income from the game. So playing away for a lower league side like ourselves, we've gone and signed 5 or 6 players in the last few weeks. So I think a lot of that has come from the FA Cup money. So it can have a big sort of impact on survival in the Football League, which for us is kind of what we're focusing on at the minute. We've had a couple of decent results recently and trying to push ourselves up the table. But these, I'm sure if you ask the Exeter players, they'd rather it be at the City Ground.
Excellent. If you have enjoyed this, as ever, do us a favour, hit like, do subscribe. I think we're at 10,000 now, which is brilliant. Do consider channel membership or Patreon, or just give us a lovely review on iTunes or Spotify. Any final conclusion you want to draw on Sels and the eye test stuff? We discussed the stats, you've gone through it all. Anything you want to add on Sels, or just in general before we let you go, James?
No, I think we've covered it a lot. Like I said, it's a great time to be a Forest fan. Matz Sels is performing excellently well. And I think we're at 9:10 time of recording. I think Mrs. Belshaw wants to get the traitors on, so I'm going to have to.
I can see you answering questions a bit more quickly.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to love you and leave you now and get the coming to the end of the traitors, and we're really enjoying that in the Belshaw household. So yeah, we're going to stick that on now and watch that.
Excellent. I don't want to cause domestic strife. This is my fault for taking too long to set up all the slides and everything. So we shall end it there. Thanks very much to James. Do join us tomorrow for the Bournemouth opposition preview. But if we don't see you then, we shall see you soon.